welcome to Coast. I'm so excited I'm doing the show with you.
So good to be here with you, too. And by the way, Carrie, I got to tell you, the AP's top 25 poll is out. So excited. Clemson #1, then Alabama. So the big question becomes, where does everybody else fall? We're going to have that in just a few moments.
So I think we're going to discuss helmets, bad hits, and running backs that don't do well. Coast starts right now, folks.
Helmet Gate strikes again. As Antonio Brown bolts from camp over his helmet issues, GM Mike Mayock issues an ultimatum. Adam Schefter and Ryan Clark on what this means for the men in black. Plus, as we enter week 3 of the preseason, all eyes will be on the Colts' Andrew Luck. Time for panic or patience? And who's the best bet to win the Heisman? Our new teammate, Mark Sanchez, in the house with what it will take to win the trophy. On Sunday, Antonio Brown leaving camp frustrated because of a loophole. His helmet did not pass safety tests. The Raiders have supported Brown when he petitioned the NFL. They supported Brown as he dealt with his frozen feet. Now the Raiders are done with the conversation.
So here's the bottom line. He's upset about the helmet issue. We have supported that. We appreciate that. Okay, but at this point, we've pretty much exhausted all avenues of relief. So from our perspective, it's time for him to be all in or all out. Okay? So we're hoping he's back soon. We got 89 guys busting their tails. We are really excited about where this franchise is going, and we hope AB is going to be a big part of it starting week 1 against Denver. End of story. No question.
Full training camp, folks. Starting in early August, let's just take a look. We found out that AB had frostbite on his feet caused by a cryotherapy machine. Then after an arbitrator ruled that, guess what, that helmet is not going to work, Brown returned to camp in Napa last week. And now Brown has left camp once again because he thought he found an acceptable helmet, but it failed a safety test. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, on Get Up This Morning explaining his side of things.
I've talked to Mike multiple times yesterday. We are on the same page. We are working together. We understand the club's frustration. We understand that they want Antonio back. We get all of that. And everyone, please understand that he wants to be there. It is safety related. It's a comfortability that he has when he runs routes, when he is avoiding hits, when he is trying to protect himself. This is the only thing that he knows. And so we are trying desperately to work this out with the Raiders. He's all in. I mean, Mike Mayock asked if he's all in or all out. He's all in with the Raiders. We just want to make sure that we do everything we can so that he can continue his career with a helmet that's worked for him. I called Mike late last night and said, hey, let's get every available helmet that's approved and let's try every one of them out. Let's find a solution. I'm working with Antonio. I'm working with the team. I'm working with the league, the union, everybody you can think of to get this hammered out.
All right, all helmets. This is interesting. So the drama in California, our Adam Schefter joining us here on Coast to Coast. Thank you so much for that. So, Adam, if AB is not all in, although Drew says he is, what could the Raiders do to ensure that he's ready to go for week 1?
More hardline approach. Basically, they could wind up sending him a 5-day letter, which would give Antonio Brown 5 days to report back to the team, or he would be placed on a list where he could not play or be paid for the entire season. A 5-day letter is a very extreme measure that's rarely taken in the NFL, but within the Raiders' rights. Now, look, Mike Mayock was very clear yesterday when he spoke in the sense that they want Antonio Brown back, but they also want this business behind them. And right now, that's not happening. There are 2,880 players in training camps across the country. One has a problem with a helmet that does not conform to NFL rules and will not practice without it. He's the only one. And you could tell by the way that Mike Mayock spoke that it's wearing thin on him and the Oakland Raiders organization. And so unless Antonio Brown reports, and Drew's working to make that happen, then it'll be up to the Raiders to decide what they want to do next.
Oh, gosh, what a nightmare. All right, so can you hang around and help us break this down a little more? Ryan, I'll send it over to you. Ryan times 2, as a matter of fact.
I like that as an idea for a segment. The 2 Ryans, Ryan times 2. I'll do that. Thanks, Carrie. Ryan Clark now here with us on Coast to Coast. Ryan, you spent 13 years in the league. You were a teammate of Antonio Brown's. So if you're his teammate now, what's your response to what he's been doing during the preseason?
One, if you're his teammate, you're just going to go ahead and play football because you're an independent contractor. You know, you're a guy who understands that your job is about you. It's not necessarily about Antonio Brown. And so in that, you're going to try to figure out how to do your job the best way you know how. And the other thing is, Antonio Brown's not a guy who wants to listen to other people in the locker room. A problem he had in Pittsburgh was that his voice wasn't the loudest voice, that his opinion wasn't taken into consideration first. So it's about the people in his circle. You hear Drew Rosenhaus trying to figure out a way to make this work, talking to the team, talking to the league, talking to the PA. He also has to talk to Antonio and say, you know what, Antonio, we have to get this done. We have to get this worked out. We also have to deal with the way that you are approaching things outside of the field through Twitter and the way that you conduct yourself.
So it's not a distraction to the other guys in the locker room?
No, listen, what happened last year in Pittsburgh is a distraction in the locker room, right? You go back to things Odell does on the sideline. I always say nobody in the locker room cares about that because it doesn't affect them. Now, if you're tearing the locker room apart inside because of your relationship with the quarterback or because of the way you feel about a coach or another person in your room, that's a deal. This has nothing to do with those dudes. They're not answering questions about Antonio Brown. They have to go play. And that's what they're focused on right now. And they feel like when they get him back, they'll be better. And when that happens, it happens. But until then, this is about the Raiders being better and those other 89 guys Mike Mayock talked about doing their jobs.
All right, Ryan, sit tight because there's another team in California that demands our attention. Carrie?
That's right. We're talking about the Chargers. You know, they don't have Melvin Gordon, so let's see how they did. We'll check in on them. Early in the first quarter, we're looking at this. Austin Eckler gets handoff from Tyrod Taylor, 7-yard run for Eckler. He ended up with 3 carries, 9 yards. Justin Jackson, good carries as well in this preseason game. Jackson gets a 17-yard game. That would be 8 carries for him, 33 yards. And then Detrez Newsome also playing some time here. Not too much for him, a 6-yard gain. What does Coach Lynn think about it?
I thought at times we ran the ball well. You know, we had a couple of runs early on where it wasn't so good. I give the Saints defense credit. Those linebackers came down the hill. I don't like the fact that on 4th and 1 and a little bit longer than a yard, we don't get that. I put us in those situations in preseason to see how we respond. That's an area where we did not respond the way I thought we would today.
All right, so the Chargers got a less than stellar showing from their running backs on Sunday. There was no Melvin Gordon, still no Melvin Gordon. We'll see what happens. So, Adam, talk to me about this. The urgency. Is there an urgency to get Melvin Gordon back on the field after what we saw? I know it's just preseason, though.
Well, Carrie, there's urgency, of course, but I think that urgency gets ratcheted up about a week from now after the 3rd preseason game as we get closer and closer to the start of the regular season. The fact of the matter is right now the two sides are not any closer to an agreement that would bring Melvin Gordon back to the Chargers. And while he's out, Justin Jackson and Austin Eckler will continue to fill his role. Keep in mind, it's not just Melvin Gordon they're missing. Derwin James, their safety, is going to have surgery. He's out 3 to 4 months. Their left tackle, Russell Okung, has a pulmonary embolism. He could miss the start of the season, so they're dealing with some major issues. As for the Dallas Cowboys, similar situation with Zeke Elliott. Not at a critical juncture just yet, but a week from now, it very well could be. Both sides know everything that's at stake with Zeke and his future. He went back to Dallas this weekend, Zeke did, left Cabo, but it doesn't mean the two sides are any closer to getting a new contract at this point in time. And then Josh Gordon wound up getting reinstated on Friday night on a conditional basis. He's rejoined the Patriots at this point. They placed him on the NFI list, which means he could basically go through meetings. He could go through some conditioning drills. Can't really practice with the team just yet. Not allowed to practice or play in the 3rd preseason game. But once the NFL reinstates him, he'll be full go. And the expectation is that Josh Gordon will be ready for the start of the regular season, Kerry.
All right. Thank you so much for that. Adam Schefter again giving us the latest as usual on Coast to Coast. Ryan, I'll send it back to you.
All right. Let's go back to Ryan Clark. All right. So we know the Chargers want Melvin Gordon back. That's key for them. But perhaps more importantly, Adam mentioned it, Derwin James out 3 to 4 months. Yeah. What kind of impact does his absence have on this team that has Super Bowl aspirations?
Man, this is huge, right? If we think back to the Baltimore Ravens game in the divisional round of the wild card round of the playoffs last year, it was that 6 defensive back, sometimes 7 defensive back package that they used. And a big part of that was Derwin James, his versatility, being able to play in the box, play the deep safety. This was a guy who in his rookie year was an all-pro performer. And when you lose that guy, you lose all of the things that he can do. And now Adrian Phillips steps up into his place. And this is no disrespect to Mr. Phillips, but he is not Derwin James. There was a reason he was drafted in the first round. It was a reason he received the accolades that he got last year. It's because he earned them. He is different. He is special. This is going to be a huge loss for this defense that not only had Super Bowl aspirations, but were with a guy who was going to be one of the main reasons you had an opportunity to get there and that you were planning to have. It's a difficult loss, Ryan.
Yeah, first team All-Pro as a rookie, just turned 23 earlier this month, the kind of guy you need. Ryan, thank you.
Absolutely.
All right, next, coming up, guys, let's take a look at this. The college football rankings are just out. No surprise at the top with Clemson in Alabama. We'll look at who else